Hi all.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome to #Wednesdays Weekly, a weekly information session in collaboration with the voluntary sector and public sector partners. Today's session is Culture Coop, the beginnings of Rochdale Boroughs' biggest creative project, and our host is Kerry. Over to you, Kerry.
Oh, hi everybody. Can everyone just make sure they're on mute? I can hear a bit of background noise. It's lovely to see everyone here, and at the very beginnings of the Culture Co-op project. I'm going to share my screen. Some of you, so I can see some residents here, and I can see some voluntary sector people and some council people, and you'll all know different bits of this project so far. So apologies if we're talking about things that you already know about, but hopefully this will be a good refresh. So we are at the very beginnings of a project called Culture Co-op. This is an Arts Council funded project through the Creative People and Places programme. And some of you will know it's been a long time coming, this piece of work. So before Action Together came to Rochdale, which is we're 3 in May, so nearly 3 years ago, there was an application that was being put together by what was Link for Life. And unfortunately, we joined that application as part of the consortium, and unfortunately it didn't go through, but got some great feedback. And then there was another application that was put together, and then COVID happened and the Arts Council stopped the programme, and then we were third time lucky. So this time Action Together was the lead partner this time, and we secured the money. So the Creative People and Places application for £1 million to the Arts Council has been funded. And we expect the actual delivery of this programme to start in around September this year. So whilst we were notified about the money last week, we don't actually get any money through until April. And then there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done around setting up the programme. So the actual delivery will be autumn this year. So the consortium members are Action Together, Your Trust, Rochdale Council, the Cooperative Group and Rochdale Borough Housing. And the match funding for this project has come through some of those consortium members as well, particularly Public Health. And we want to work with a range of delivery partners. So if you're not in that consortium, you can still be part of Team CPP, although we might start calling it Team Culture Co-op. So I want to try and explain the project in a bit of a pictorial fashion, so through a few pictures. So this picture, it's a GIF. Can you see it moving? The bigger picture, yeah. So we start off with a creative programme that happens across the whole borough. So we'll have lots of artist-led workshops and kind of creative research happening to try and understand where culture is happening in the borough, and importantly where it isn't happening. And by culture, I mean creativity, engagement with cultural activities, but those cultural activities could look like arts or drama or writing. It's quite diverse in terms of the kind of methods of delivery. So we'll be doing this borough-wide light touch intervention, and that part of the project is called Make Your Own Culture. And we'll be gleaning lots of information from that, which will overlay with data from like deprivation data and data from the local authority, and also insight from the voluntary sector and other partners to find out where people are least likely to access culture. So where is there no facilities for culture to happen? So there isn't, an art gallery or a bus route to an art gallery. Where is there no space for community activity? Where are the places where people are least likely, or people face the biggest barriers to engaging in cultural activity? And then those are the places where we're going to set up shops. So moving on to this picture of a woman drawing a picture of a house, or my artistic license calls it a shop. And this shop is a space, probably an unused retail space, or potentially a community venue where activity will happen. So cultural, creative activity will happen. And moving on to this picture where everybody's holding up the shop, that activity might look like arts workshops, it might look like creative writing groups, it might look like little theatre spaces, mini theatre spaces, it might look like people being able to access art supplies, creativity boxes, like the ones that were sent out during the pandemic by Cartwheel and other organisations on this call. And through that activity, we will start to try and engage with people around cultural activities. There may also be access to other things in that shop, so other things that people in that particular community need, and those are to be identified. But through that process, with some skilled facilitators and the team that will be employed to deliver CPP, we'll find these cultural pioneers. So this picture down here of the people all working together towards something. So those people will be invested in. So they'll be invested in with resources and time and training and support, and they'll start to program some of that arts activity in that cultural shop. And then we'd like to expand that, so they're producing creative cultural activity within their community. And then eventually we move on to this picture with the dragon, where we are those cultural pioneers, those people who've been engaged through the arts activity and then leading the arts activity and then programming the arts activity. They'll contribute then to borough-wide creative projects or interventions like the Feel Good Festival or other big projects. So there's this sense of kind of starting off wide, starting off by learning what's available, then really focusing some time, investment, resources in people and a place, and then those people in place having the opportunity to influence what happens on a borough-wide scale again. So that's the kind of concept, which sounds lovely, and we totally recognise all of those bits may be tricky. So we've had some questions along the way that I just wanted to address, and I'm sure you'll have more questions afterwards. So why Culture Co-op? So we want to stimulate more creative and cultural activity in the Rochdale Borough. I'm just going to minimise this so I can read my writing. We want to work with residents, artists, providers and partners who believe that amazing and diverse cultural experiences enrich the lives of individuals, build communities and can positively transform a place. And we'll have a particular focus on families and working with people who are closest to the borough's problems, especially those affected by inequality. This is a big one. Lots of people ask this question. So what's it pay for? So it pays for recruiting to several roles. So roles like community producers, audience development, admin support, a programme director. And that engagement role will sit within Action Together, and the other roles will sit within the other organisations in the consortium. And that's still to be decided exactly where those people will sit and what those jobs will look like. The programme is going to fund a programme of commissioned creative activity. So that will involve hopefully multiple arts organisations in the borough and individual artists, both established and emerging. And digital and accessibility costs are embedded within the programme. I think it's important to recognise and just to say that the actual delivery of the work, none of the consortium members will be able to be paid for that. So, for example, Action Together will support the programme, but we won't be able to be paid to deliver any work. Anything that we offer will be in kind. And then why co-op? So we at Action Together have a vision or a statement that we like to say, that inequality cannot be eradicated unless we design it out. So we think creativity and culture are powerful methods to connect and strengthen communities and tackle inequality. We want local businesses and community groups and public sector partners and voluntary sector organisations to collaborate through this programme. And to do this, we need to connect with and listen to people who live, work and play here. So just to kind of go over those different areas of the project. So we have that make your own culture part, which is large scale, light touch, cultural interventions that that inspires people and provides activity for people, but also helps us understand a place. We then have culture shops, and these are artist-led, they're pop-up shops, they equip people and connect them to cultural experiences. There's a lot of investment and focus on the place that people are going to experience that culture. And then the cultural pioneers, so these are the people that we're going to identify from those communities where we set up the shops, and that their sort of program will include volunteering and training and skills development, and creative inspiration, and they'll be co-producing creative work with artists and other partners. And then where we want to get to is this idea of culture neighbourhoods. So both a culturally enriched neighbourhood where the shop is, but also widening that out to include geographical neighbourhoods and even neighbourhoods of kind of identity or experience. So we're kind of widening back out as we go through the project. We already have loads of spaces and places. So Action Together has something called a Cooperative Engagement Spaces and Places Guide, which has all of the existing networks and forums and channels and events where engagement between people and communities already takes place. We don't have a kind of cultural element to that, so that will strengthen, this project will strengthen that. And we work mainly with the voluntary sector and public sector partners. We are less strong working with residents. We only really work with residents around our volunteering programme. So we're hoping that this work will bring us closer to the people who live here. And we've already spoken to quite a lot of people. So we spoke to the inclusive messaging group about this project. So we asked, what does culture mean to you? And got quite a lot of pushback actually on the word culture. And we want to make sure that we're talking about creativity. We know it can mean the heritage and the past. People talked about, is the word divisive, yours and ours. Other people talked about it meaning making something new. So there's lots of meanings attached to the word culture, which I'm sure we'll explore through the project. And we also asked what people wanted the project to change. So there was an example of the Ripples of Hope Festival as a really great example of arts and culture being used for social change. So we've got some great examples to learn from. There was this idea of what it means to be from Rochdale, and from being in its most inclusive sense. So what's that kind of belonging part of this? We also talked about accessibility and accessible art and accessible cultural experiences. And then we talked about the sort of experience of COVID and how that's disconnected people in some ways and connected people in different ways, the effects of well-being, the effects of creativity on well-being and improving well-being through that kind of local arts offer. So this idea of diversity and access and it really affecting the current situation are things that we want to concentrate on. And we started asking people what they think, and I can see a few people in the room who gave us some really great insight. People saying that it's right up their street, they're creative people, looking forward to discussing it, looking forward to people coming together and creating something after all the challenge we've experienced. A point about the co-op and the cooperative approach and co-produced, and how that is a real challenge and we can't just kind of brush over that. That's something that's going to be we're going to have to work through as a consortium, but also as a whole community around this project. And then about co-production, equipping people to express themselves and how the impact of the message that they're presenting can be enhanced through creativity. And we talked about we talked about so what and who cares, and started that conversation with people. And we wanted to create positive media stories. We wanted some recognition as a creative hub, and we talked about the document that we produced for the Arts Council and the fact that that was quite for the Arts Council. So we need to think about the language and the words that we use, take out the buzzwords, and make sure that as far as possible, the kind of messaging and how we're communicating about the project is written by the people involved in the project rather than by the consortium members. So I'm going to stop sharing there. If I just quickly tell you about where we're up to with the consortium. So we have our first meeting this Friday, and there's lots of decisions to be made. So what happens with Creative People and Places is you sign the funding agreement, you get the funding, but then there's a development period where things like writing your funding strategy, writing the job descriptions, all of that has to happen before obviously the delivery starts. And the consortium will be almost like the board, but the actual delivery and the project will be driven by this new delivery team. So we'll be hopefully employing people who live here, or people who bring some experience that we don't already have here. And then it will be that delivery team that drives the project, with that delivery starting in September. And then in the meantime, we do have our Respond, Repair, Recover Fund, which has got a priority around creative projects. So if there's kind of creative projects that you think would link in with this programme and you want those to begin sooner than September, there is the Respond, Repair, Recover Fund at the moment with that priority. So I'll stop there. I don't know if anybody has any questions. See quite a bit of chat, people saying hello to each other. Do you want to put your hands up or just take your mic off if anyone's got a question?
Just stop the recording.